One of the hardest things to figure out after spinal cord injury is dressing. Hi, I'm Tara Shetterly and I was paralyzed 5 years ago. So today I'm going to be showing you exactly how I independently get dressed from the bed, from my chair, and from the toilet, as well as how I choose clothes that don't cause pressure injuries. But don't worry because I'm going to be wearing these leggings under everything, so there will be no free shows. Of course, every injury is unique, which will lead to differences in technique, safety, and independence. As I said, I'm a T11 paraplegic, meaning that I have a good bit of core control, which personally helps me be able to bend side to side like that and shimmy to get things on. But I don't want anyone to watch this video with a higher level of injury and feel bad because the way I do it can't be the way they do it. I simply want to show this video to people that have a similar level of injury as I do and kind of give them a starting place. First off, I'm going to show you what it looks like to dress from the bed level because that's how I initially learned after being injured. The bed is easier for a few reasons, mainly because if you fall over, there's plenty of surface area to catch you, and there's plenty of surface area to push off from. And when you go to get things over your side, you can roll instead of shimmying and lifting. This is why the bed is usually the preferred technique by people that have higher levels of injury. The first thing I'm gonna put on is a pair of joggers because that's what I wore for the first 6 months after being paralyzed because they're looser and just a lot easier to start off with. Loosen them up as much as you can, and then we're just gonna thread our legs through the pants. This is a big reason why it's so important to stretch after spinal cord injury because the less flexible you are, the harder dressing is going to be. I am fairly flexible, which really helps me be able to pick up my legs and maneuver them however I need. Make sure you pull your pants up as high as possible before you start rolling. I think this is pretty good, so the first step is to hook your thumb in the side of your waistband, stabilize on the other side, and roll. And then just repeat until they're on. And as you can see, it really only took me 2 or 3 rolls to get the sweatpants on, which really just goes to show why these are really easy to start off with. They're not crazy fashionable, but they are practical. And taking things off is usually even easier. You just do the same thing in reverse. And it's really the same process for shorts or leggings, it's just going to take a little more time to master because they are tighter and harder to put on. And there you go. I look really weird, but you get the concept. If you're a lower injury like I am, once you graduate from dressing in the bed, you can move on to dressing in your chair. I personally do this as my main way of getting dressed, but that's just because I find it more convenient and you don't necessarily have to get dressed in your chair if that's not convenient for you, because you do have to consider center of gravity and side stabilization, because if not, you could technically fall out of your chair, which is not ideal. So especially if you're just learning, make sure you remember to lock your brakes. I know pros don't have brakes on their chairs at all, but I am not there. It's been 5 years and I still always lock my brakes when I'm getting dressed. And if you don't feel comfortable just bare skin on your chair, you can use a reusable chuck pad. I get them on Amazon and I just tuck them into my chair when I'm getting out of the shower to prevent wetness getting into my cushion, but you can also do this getting dressed if you just want to make sure that there's a separation between you and your chair, but that's just personal preference. I'm just going to show you guys using the shorts because I think you kind of get the concept the same way, whether it's joggers or tight leggings, it's really the same method. So again, I just take 1 foot up at a time. I bend it in the figure 4 position. Luckily, I'm flexible enough to do that. And I thread my leg in. Same thing on the other side. If you don't want to do figure 4, but you can bring your knee up to your chest, you can also do it like this. Shimmy those bad boys up. Now, instead of rolling onto the bed, I grab onto the pushroom. I basically grab onto the pushroom and push up and to the side. Same thing as in the bed, hook your thumb into the waistband and pull up. And there you have it, you're wearing shorts. When it comes to shoes, you can also choose whether you prefer to put the shoes on in the bed or in the chair. But obviously I do kind of everything in the chair, so that includes shoes. I like Converse because you can take out as many laces as you need and really loosen the tongue up. So you can kind of just slide your foot in and then pull on the back of the shoe to get it over your heel. And then to get a little more leverage, I take my foot off of my knee and grab on with both, just to make sure that your foot is all the way at the bottom of the shoe. And then I lace her up. If you're not yet at the stage of wearing typical shoes, I know that I wasn't for at least the first few months. I was wearing slip-on shoes, the same pair every day, because it was just the easiest to get on, especially considering the swelling that you might be having, especially at the beginning of your injury. Like I said, Converse are kind of my go-to shoe because I find them the easiest to put on and they're super cute. But I do have some shoes that are definitely harder to get on, like my Doc Martens, but as long as you can get them on, that's okay. Just make sure that you remember if a pair of shoes is a lot tighter than something like Converse, you might not want to wear them all day. I know that when I'm wearing tighter shoes like Doc Martens, I take them off and my feet are very red, very irritated. So just keep that in mind for your future health. Obviously, I'm not going to show you guys my upper body dressing because I don't have any impairments in my upper body, and so I put them on just like anyone else does. But I will say that when I'm getting out of the shower and redressing, I do purposely put on my upper body clothes, my shirt, whatever it is, first before doing my leggings or whatever pants I'm choosing to wear that day. Because if I'm very cold, I can feel the cold in my upper body a lot more than my lower body. Yes, I know that your lower body being cold will also affect your upper body, but for me, it's just my little secret. I saved the toilet for last because I personally find this to be the most frustrating, but it does have to be done, so here's how I do it. Of course, I have to transfer on first, which I can make a dedicated video about in the future because transfers are, of course, their own huge life skill after spinal cord injury. Essentially though, I put one hand on the toilet seat and I keep the other on my wheelchair cushion, both feet on the ground, and I pivot over. Your bathroom setup will depend on your technique and your needs, but for me personally, I don't have any grab bars in my bathroom. My apartment is not an accessible one at all, but even if it was and I had grab bars, I probably would not use them. Instead, I grab onto the side of the toilet and I kind of put my hand right near my butt so that I know I'm not gonna slide off. And then I lean to the side, slightly push up so I can get a little bit of height, and slide my shorts off. And then just repeating until they're totally slid off. And then I just slide them back up. Some toilet seats in public have a little gap in the center, so it's more shaped like two pieces of the toilet seat instead of one big circle. So you do have to watch those because sometimes if you're getting dressed on a toilet like that, your clothes can kind of catch on that gap, which is gross, but it happens, so it's just something to be aware of. And there you have it. Now your shorts have been taken off and put back on, which is a crucial skill to have after spinal cord injury, whether you cath directly in the toilet like I do, or you don't, because everyone has to go at number 2, and I'm just going to assume that you are doing that on the toilet. This is definitely the most difficult skill my occupational therapist taught me when I was in inpatient rehab, but it is a necessary evil, and it looks a lot easier and faster now that I've had 5 years of practice doing it. So it's totally understandable if you're newly injured and this takes you longer and it's harder and you might need a little boost, because I did too 5 years ago. I've kind of already talked about clothing preferences a little bit throughout the video, but obviously it's its own subject that deserves to be talked about after spinal cord injury, especially if you're a woman that is used to having a lot of different clothing options. I've kind of already broke down the differences between joggers and leggings, but there's also things like denim that have buttons and zippers. That is something that I personally don't really wear anymore. And it's for a few reasons. Denim was a lot harder to get used to the feeling of after you've been used to athleisure wear for a year, wearing leggings and joggers, which are a lot more comfortable than jeans. So part of it was comfort, but also because the material itself is a lot rougher and harder, and I just feel like my skin is not gonna like it as much. But if that is not you and you really, really, really love denim and you love jeans, that's okay. The one thing that you do have to steer clear of is if there's buttons or zippers on the back pockets, little rhinestones, anything like that that can dig into your skin that you're sitting on, can lead to a pressure injury, and you really don't want that. However, sometimes you cannot wear leggings to just every event, so I do have other choices that are more comfortable and safe for my skin. For example, I have these two pairs of pants. They're kind of like leggings because they have an elastic waistband, but the material itself is not really as stretchy, and it does have a design that makes it look a little more professional. I honestly don't really know what to call these, but they're very cute and they're comfortable, so I definitely wear stuff like this decently often. And as you can see, there's really nothing on the back except this like little tiny metal tag, but this part I don't sit on, so it is safe. And of course there's things like flowy fabric pants that are cute, a little more casual, but they're not quite as casual as leggings, which are nice because they're still just as comfortable. And then lastly, we have the holy grail. I just call these work pants, but I think they're slacks, but they have a stretchiness like leggings. They're just looser and more professional. I honestly find these even more comfortable than leggings actually. I highly recommend going to the mall or something and looking for a pair of just like plain slacks. I don't even know what material this is, but I have two pairs of them and they're both really great. And then as you can see, there is nothing on the back that I would be sitting on and hurting me. Also, if you're interested, there are things out there like adaptive clothes that are literally designed to be easier and safer to put on. Personally, I never tried them because they're hard to find, more expensive, and usually less cool looking. But if that's something you think could help, I highly recommend looking into it. I know there's a lot of brands online that you can shop under. Like I've said throughout this video, everyone is different, so what works for me might not work for you, but I couldn't thank occupational therapy more for helping to find the solutions specific to me. But hopefully this still gives you a good starting point to eventually make dressing easier, independent, and safer down the line, especially once you're off back precautions and bracing. And honestly, considering the amount of able-bodied people that don't understand this concept, I hope this clarified some things on that front as well to dispel as much ignorance as we can. Plus, I'll be breaking down more foundational life skills after spinal cord injury, from transfers to shoulder health in future videos, so stay tuned until the next one.